Hi, my name is Lindsay Clyde, and this is Learn, Live, Love Yourself, a podcast where self-discovery leads to self-lovery. Each episode, I am delivering fun, practical ways to peel back the layers of your life and tap into that deep down you. Changing your mind one challenge at a time, this podcast will get you loving yourself better every day. It's time to grow. Come learn, live, love yourself with me. Episode 7, Internet Etiquette, an interview with Darrin Simpson. Internet engagement is still a relatively new system of communication, especially when compared to other forms of communication such as public speaking, writing letters, and even something as simple as sitting down and having a face-to-face conversation. The rules of internet engagement have been formed quickly and without much thought. The screen between us impedes the usual social restraint about what is and isn't appropriate to say to someone. Because of this, we often feel justified in railing against others because of their dissenting opinions. This is harmful, not only to society, but to the individual as well. While lashing out at someone on the internet may seem to bolster us in our opinions at first, over time, the interactions we have with others will come to define us. We want our legacy to show that we were compassionate, understanding, and wise. But many of us are leaving a legacy that implies bigotry, crassness, and foolishness instead. It is time for us to be retrained about how we interact over social media and the internet. Darrin, thanks so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, okay, so the reason I brought Darrin here, you guys, is because he is the classiest person on the internet. Honestly, if one thing to say about him, it's that you're so classy. You're classy. That's just the only word to describe it. Viewers, my voice, it's horrible tonight, so I'm grateful for your understanding. I am going to be kind of raspy, so it is what it is. But Darrin, would you give us a brief snapshot of your life up until this point? What's the highlight reel of your life?
Sure. And first, let me say classy is not a word usually used to define me, so I will take it.
Guys, he's sitting here with like this really awesome teal button-up shirt with these bright red glasses on. Guys, he's classy. He's a class act.
I'm going to take it all the way. So I grew up in Idaho. I always like to say that I grew up in rural Idaho, so no one's confused with urban Idaho, right?
But
right. Hashtag rimshot. And so I grew up in Burley, Idaho. I went to high school there. Served a mission for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, attended a church-sponsored school, met my wife, which is super not unique to people who've had that experience. She was also from Idaho. We've been married 26 years this summer.
Wow. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you very much. We have 5 children and one beautiful granddaughter and another on the way in September.
Really?
We have 3 married daughters.
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting.
So we're very excited. A little bit about my education. I have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in public administration, and a PhD in education with an emphasis in organizational communication.
Wow.
So I don't know what else you wanted to highlight.
Well, so what are you doing for your job right now? What's your job right now?
So I actually work for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm a religious educator.
Okay.
So I teach religion programs for them in the greater Boston area.
That's awesome. And are you liking your job?
No.
Can you say that out loud?
I love my job. It's one of the things I feel a little guilty about sometimes is like when I'm talking to people who are in career angst or career decision, I feel like it's not an empathy space for me.
Yeah, like I have
right. I have the job lottery, and so like I don't know how to say, that must be really hard.
That's great. I wish that for every person. So, like I said before, the reason I thought of you is because anybody who is friends with you on Facebook knows that you are an advocate for rational, considerate debate on all things like political or otherwise, really. How did that begin?
So, I guess I've always engaged in political conversation. I've always had friends that we've had political conversations with long before a social media medium was around. And a lot of times my opinions differed from the places that I lived.
Okay.
And so that caused me, I think, just to be a little more sensitive and to be a little less abrasive, and maybe to try to understand where other people are coming from. But I also had real moments of being combative. And but it was, right, as you mentioned in the intro, when you're face to face with someone, you can kind of get those clues like, oh, I've crossed a line here,
Mm-hmm.
or this isn't quite right. And so I had a mild online presence, and then, just like a lot of us, friends and families, things like that. But I thought I felt constrained. I wanted to be able to feel like I could say what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
But I felt like, oh, if I do, it might offend people or whatever. And then in October-ish of 2015, I could just sense that with the upcoming 2016 election, right, that it was going to be rough.
Right.
And so I sat down and I wrote a Facebook post about it. Well, actually, what started, I was going to write someone had posted some things that really got under my skin. And it was just irrational and like not thought out.
Yeah.
So I created a bunch of memes, that were just nonsensical, but kind of biting a little bit. And I was going to share a couple of them. And I had the thought come into my head, what value will this be? Like, what will be the net result of me sharing this?
That's interesting.
Right?
After you having created the memes, like you've already done all the work.
Absolutely.
You're set to press post. Like,
oh, yeah.
And the thought comes to you, this is not going to help.
Yeah. Like, what does this do?
Right.
Maybe best case scenario shows I'm witty. They were designed to kind of blow back at things I was seeing, right? So they were retaliatory, right? They weren't, I wasn't making something. I was trying to tear down something else, right? And so I just thought, this isn't what I want. And so then there was a period of a few days of pondering about this. And I started using a hashtag called Elevate the Debate. Mm-hmm. And I actually wrote an initial Facebook post and I said to my friends, look, I want to talk about politics. I think that the internet should be a place where we can have open dialogue. I think it should be more than just seeing pictures of your kids or your vacation, which is fine, and a whole other set of issues of FOMO and whatnot. But I thought, we have this new medium that has us the opportunity to communicate with people internationally as well as across town. That is really an unprecedented thing. I mean, we've never seen a communication style like this. And I thought, I just can't concede. I don't want to just like every time I go online say, well, careful, someone might be hurt, or we can't really have conversations. We just can talk about what I ate, right? Or some innocuous thing like that. Yeah. So I thought, well, so what do we do? So I created a list for myself of kind of guidelines, and I invited, hey, anybody else who wants to do this, here's some of my guidelines. This is how, right, hold me accountable.
Yeah, here's the rules.
Mm-hmm. And I said to everyone else, hold me accountable for them, right? If you see me violating these, and let's talk about stuff. And then it kind of evolved from there. Sometimes I would even see an issue and say, this is overtly a provocative issue, right? And let's talk about it. Let's see if we can have a civil conversation about it. And for the most part, it went pretty well. So it kind of progressed from there of me wanting to use that space more authentically. And I actually, at one point, I think a lot of people have done this, I actually had two profiles, right? So I had like a professional profile, and then where I engaged with my students, and then I had my other people profile. And I thought, I just thought, I don't understand the point of this. So I merged the two in about 2014, and then it was 2015 where I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop filtering what I say in the way of like, so I'm filtering now, right? Like I think we all have to learn to filter better,
right? But
I'm not going to not talk about what I want to talk about.
See, and
does that make sense?
Yes, and that's the delicate line, because people, I feel like there is this wave or movement these days of, I'm just going to say it like it is, straight from my brain, and I don't care how it comes across. Like, I'm just going to bash you over the head with what I think, and because everyone else is doing it, or that we don't have the tools to actually know how to filter ourselves and be sincere and authentic at the same time. Yeah. It's a lost art.
Well, and I think it's a new art, right? Because the medium is new. And I think that half of what your statement said was accurate, and the other half I think maybe is not as connected as we think. So I think we do want to be authentic, but I don't think we stop and say, I'm going to bash you over the head. I think we almost make a separation, right? Like, well, I'm just going to say this thing because it's who I really am. And we don't think about the other person. Like, I don't think we're beating someone over the head. Because it's rational to me, it should be rational to you.
Right.
Well, that's the case rhetorically long before the internet machine. But what changes now is that I don't have this kind of relationship face-to-face exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually looking at you. I can't feel the temperature in the room going up, so to speak. And so I think we lose some of that online, and we almost adopt an online persona. I think we almost adopt I wouldn't talk to you this way at the foyer at church. I wouldn't talk to you this way at the grocery store, but I might online. And I think there's something about that we're all wrestling with because it is new, and I think we almost have adopted two kinds of
voices.
Two kinds of voices.
Yeah.
My online voice
mm-hmm.
and my face-to-face voice, right? And to some degree, that's always going to be the case, right? Not that it has to be negative, but it is different.
Yeah,
right?
It's just lost in translation, right? I mean, it's you're speaking and having social cues, like you were saying, versus how do you actually get that to come through in text, in letters and numbers?
Yeah, so I think the default is that we feel like it's easier to say what we want online, and maybe we're a little more caustic, or like your nice introduction there, right? We become a little more crass, right, or whatnot. When in reality, what we need to do is actually have more etiquettes online than we would face-to-face. Because if I get extemporaneous, or if I get a little exuberant, right, and we're together, you can kind of get that, or you can say, oh, he'll dial that back. But online, that's it. That's the whole exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The exchange was this dagger, right? And then that's all that's left there. And so I think I've learned, for me at least, I'm actually more careful with what I say online than I am even face to face. I mean, hopefully I'm not a big jerk face to face.
You're not. It's fine.
But I try to stop and think about it. And my personal rules is like I don't engage in online comment sections with people I don't know.
Okay.
Right? Because I want to rarely do. It helps for me to remember who the person is.
Yeah.
So like on my own social media thread, when someone's commenting, I'm trying to remember who this person is, what their story is, or what I know their story to be, and it changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the interesting things is when you're mediating moderating, I should say, when someone takes an attack at someone, I almost want to say, oh no, you don't understand all of Trevor's backstory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, tone that back. And so it's an interesting space. So I try not to engage often with people I don't know. Or if I do, I add a second level almost.
A filter.
A filter, right? Because I'm giving some written record here of my exchange with them. And I want it to be completely approachable.
Exactly. So are you naturally good at this? How do people gain these skills? How do I gain these skills? I went to school and I minored in rhetoric, and so I kind of learned how to craft an argument, and yet my efforts still come up short. Is it all on me? Like, what else can I do to add these filters, or know how much to filter, or what are some key things to remember if I'm going to engage in some type of heated or, difficult debate?
No, I get it. For me, I have some kind of lists of things that I do. Like for example, I try to talk about ideas instead of individuals.
What would that look like?
So, right, especially politics is one that jumps instantly to mind. So someone says, I can't stand candidate Y, right? She's the worst, and her motives are this or that. I try to not engage in a type of personal hyperbole like that.
Okay.
Instead, I'm like, no, let's talk about this idea. What do you think of reintroducing fish to this river, or, obviously more controversial things than that. And so if we talk about ideas instead of people, we can maybe even agree on a set of, if not even agreed upon facts, just that this is an issue, right? Like if we want to talk about guns, let's talk about guns. In fact, the Facebook, it kind of morphed into then I wanted to do something even more. So now I have a blog that I at least once or twice a month post something from.
Tell us the name of the blog.
The blog is mightier than the sword. .wordpress.com.
Okay, and that will be linked in the show notes, and you can find that at learnliveloveyourselfpodcast.com as well. But okay, the blog is mightier than the sword. You went to that medium to try and start?
I wanted to start conversation. And so I would sometimes, I first wrote every week. So a lot of times I was writing about the things that were actually going on in the news. And then I found that I was also writing about larger issues or themes, and those were more valuable to me personally. And also the exchange I would have as I shared those on social media were more valuable. So I thought, well, what if I talked about actually super controversial things? And, right? And so I actually have a couple kind of tongue in cheek. I say, instead of something controversial, let's just talk about abortion. Or instead of something controversial, let's talk about gun control.
Yeah.
And then I make an argument for what I think is a position or an idea. And then I invite those who read it, take a comment from this and tell me what you agree with or disagree.
So instead of an overall, like, I was angry about what you said in that whole post, you asked them to go to something directly, like pick out an idea from this section, or how do you?
Yeah. In fact, I do it with news articles sometimes too, right? Like I'll take a news article and I'll say, this really was impactful to me, or I really agree with this article, or I disagree. I'd love your thoughts. And I'll even use the hashtag elevate the debate.
Yeah.
And I'll say, but here's the deal. I want you to pick a quote and then tell us what you like or don't like about it.
Okay.
And initially I started too, I would even put my guidelines in there, my kind of 7 rules of online behavior or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we would engage in a conversation. And I didn't think it was as impactful as, I guess I didn't anticipate it. And there were lots of times I was like, this is dumb. I'm spending an hour or 2 a day online. Right? I need my life back.
Totally.
And so I'd be ready to quit. And then someone would approach me either in person that I knew, or would message me or say, this really had an impact on me. I really appreciate this. Or this is an important thing. And so I was just like, we gotta do it again. You know what I mean? And so, but for me, it has been a valuable experience it's made my ideas stronger. It's challenged some of my assumptions. And it's made me have faith again in what we can do with this medium. Because there are lots of people who want to just say, that's it, I'm out.
That's me.
Yeah, and I'm totally sympathetic to that.
Well, because I just feel like there's no other way. Yeah. And that's why I saw what you were doing and I just thought, that's amazing. We need this. We do need this. And I'm in that same boat of those people messaging you saying, thank you for what you're doing, because not only personally has it challenged, like you were saying, my own views, and at least given me a rational viewpoint from the other person, because we're in this echo chamber, right? We always hear back pretty much what we already believe. And it's so easy to just say, oh yeah, this is right. This is what it should be. But when an argument comes from someone that, 1, I know, and 2, respect, and 3, is educated, and 4, is providing this structure of you must behave yourself to engage, suddenly new information comes into my brain and new opinions start to have merit because I know who you are.
Well, and you can feel
trusted,
right?
Yes.
That's super interesting perspective. So a dialectic is, I'm sure you know the term, a dialectic is when you think one course of action will produce a set of results, but it actually produces the opposite.
Interesting.
So I'm old enough to remember when the internet machine came about, and there was all this conversation of, well, we'll have access to all this information, and we'll be able to know things that are going around the world. And it was actually Bill Clinton was speaking about this. He was still president like in 1996 or 97. And I was, I think just had finished my undergraduate work. But I remember watching him say, the one worry I have with the internet is, will people just dial into what they want?
Interesting. Wow.
Right?
Really?
And so the dialectic is, the World Wide Web is going to open us up to all this information. And social media made that even more, right? Like now I get to actually see my friends from high school, from college, from around the world. Mm-hmm. And yet, instead of opening us up to new ideas, we've kind of run to our own things that affirm us. Right? I think sometimes it's become an echo chamber of self-affirmation. Like, I just want to find people who think what I think.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, right? We've all had people dump us, right? Who unfriend us or whatever. And so I've tried hard not to do that, to be like, this person says these things that make me out just crazy. Mm-hmm. So how do I either engage with them or or not say this is just part of their personality. Don't run. Do you know what I mean? And so because I think it's actually in some ways the internet has isolated us, right? We actually now are only hearing what we want to hear. And there's a whole other conversation to be had about Facebook algorithms and those kind of things that perpetuate that, right? That drive us to, so if you like something, it's going to,
give you more of the same thing.
Right, because they're not interested in us as a consumer. They see us as a product. It's not a normal relationship. I go to your store, I buy a bagel. If I don't like it, I stop buying bagels from you. Yeah. Right? We're the product for them. Yeah. And so all they want is long eyeballs, right? So if I like Taco Hut, then I'm going to get all kinds of ads for Taco Hut, right? And so they think, oh, that's what this guy likes. And so that's really challenging for us to be alert of that. But we do it to ourselves. So not even with those algorithms, we do it. Oh, I'm so tired of her talking about this or that, or he only talks about this, so I stop engaging with them.
Yeah. Hide, unfriend.
And so it's an interesting thing that I think we have kind of what we thought was going to be this really expansive, huge opportunity to know the world and talk to everyone has really made us feel more isolated and even more locked in to our own group of people. And that's a challenge. That takes effort to get out of that.
Because as you were speaking, I was thinking, even in real life, we tend to surround ourselves with people who agree with us or who are like us because we want to feel validated, because we want to feel affirmed in who we are. And so it takes real effort to branch out and engage with people on a level that is considerate and kind and also intellectual.
Well, and there's a primal reason for that too, right? I mean, like we talk about tribalism now in regards to like political ideology, but I mean, it made sense, right? These people protect me. And even still, if you look at the mid-20th century, more closed neighborhoods, they had some problems. They were excluded other races. They excluded other people, all of these kind of tight neighborhood issues it caused. But also there was a real sense of identity. I live in this neighborhood in Chicago. I know these people. They're my people. And so there's some part of us that's inclined to do that. And now we can do it in such a quick, easy way online where we can just dial into exactly what we're interested in. And it's problematic.
It is problematic. And so I want to hear, do you have a specific experience? You were kind of vaguely referring to things that have happened that made you want to continue when things were feeling like, oh, this is too much, it's too heavy. Is there a specific experience that comes to mind that really stands out to you if you were to write one thing about why this blog has been important or what kind of impact it has had? What experience would that be?
So this is a crazy one. So the Colin Kaepernick thing really got under my skin because I really viewed it differently and felt that there was a super racial undertone to the thing. You know, like read this really long, year-long detailed piece in the New York Times about him. And so I kind of got to where I felt like, oh, I don't think I understood his story, right? And now that I understood his story, this is a really compelling person. And people were so vitriolic about it and clearly coming from a place where they weren't informed. They were attributing motive to him that wasn't quite accurate and things like this. And so I thought, I want to, how do I talk about this? And I had some really long exchanges with individuals on it. And it caused, again, my own frustrations. But I thought, how do I come out of this? And why is it bothering me, right? That's the reflection it caused me, is why is this issue so bothersome to me? And I don't know that I have a perfect answer to that, but as I remember that particular issue, I thought I was on like, am I really going to go for this and be rude and dismissive to people? Or am I really going to try to understand what they want to say?
So you're really saying like, okay, am I going to go through with what I've been preaching this whole time?
Exactly.
Like, am I actually going to stand up for...
Or am I just going to say, you're a racist idiot, I'm out?
Because you're tired. It's so exhausting. Just trying to keep pounding, doing the grind.
No, for sure. Well, and you have to have rules too, right? Like I don't have notifications. I'm already on social media too much. I don't need them to remind me that I should be there again. I do it when I want. I engage at the times of day I'm going to engage.
Are you able to mentally set it down after you leave, or does it kind of keep? For me, it just like kept going and going in my head. I couldn't shut it off.
I wonder if he replied.
Yeah.
I wonder if she said something.
Maybe
back.
I should have said this differently.
Totally, yeah. Absolutely. So I found that wasn't a healthy space always. right? And so I had to find ways to take breaks. So I would almost even say to myself, I'm going to post this article, either that I've written or that I've liked. So I'm going to think about it and decide, okay, this Friday is a good space for me to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share it. I know that I'm going to be back and forth on the train a lot. I'll have time to engage in it. And even being intentional about it instead of reactionary was super beneficial to me.
So with this specific experience, did you carve out space?
No,
or were you like...
not at all. Not initially. That's why it got in my head, right? Because I'm like, 1:00 in the morning. Well, what do you think of this? And, and you didn't even read this part. If you had read this part, you would have known that what you're saying is completely outrageous. And so I was filtering that the whole time. Of, well, I don't want to be combative. I don't, And so I think it helped me say, what are my limits? What are, you know what I mean? How much do I want to engage? And one of the conversations was on someone else's thread. And as I looked back, I thought, I've hijacked this person's whatever. And in fact, since then, it's helped me. I want to be proactive, so I'll post what I want to post and engage with people. If someone has even posted something that I know is inaccurate, I've wrestled with, I don't think it's my responsibility to call them out, because that's reactionary. So instead, I think, well, what could I write about how, and first off, I try to reflect on me. Well, what do I do that's like this? What am I doing that's maybe like this? And then that process of taking some time, and in cyberspace, it's hard to take time, right? Because we see something, we want to instantly respond. Yeah. And so to take time to step back and to say, I don't have to respond to everything. I don't have to be the woke police, right?
Yeah.
But I still can contribute and say, hey, I think there's some dangerous things we're saying or doing. But is there a way and a space to say that provides other people to come in, as opposed to just everyone siding up and walking away? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And so this stuck out to you because it gave you boundaries. Like you started to see, like, I need to have boundaries, or... Well,
so I already at that point was like, I was engaging in what I would, this elevate the debate and trying, but it helped me realize that there's this emotional level that I should check.
Your emotional level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the real problems online, is that we can let our emotions come out in a way that maybe we had, and we do this in face-to-face conversation too, right? We've all said things we wish we wouldn't have, and yet we actually online have an opportunity to filter, if we will, a little more. I don't have to post this instantly.
I can change that word. I can delete it really fast, before I post.
Yeah, I can think about this.
Yeah.
And I've even said to my spouse or others, what do you think of this? How does this sound? We don't have to respond in real time. We can and that's one of the other problems that we talk about with social media, right? Is this idea of the fear of missing out or whatever. We can use the medium in the way we want, right?
Yeah, we don't need to let the medium use us.
Yeah, absolutely. It already does, right?
It does.
In so many ways, with cleaning our privacy and doing all these other things, right? But yeah, we can be more in control of this and the timing of it. And I think that being proactive has helped me be less reactive. And when I'm proactive, I'm always happier with what I've said or how I've engaged than if I'm just like, and if we think about it, it's not rational, right? Lindsay just said this crazy thing online. I've got to correct her right now, or what? Right? That's true. Like, what are the consequences if I don't correct Lindsay this moment?
Well, maybe we think that, like, well, now all of Lindsay's friends are gonna see that, and they're gonna think it's right too, and like this world, I don't know.
The next thing you know, we're all wearing red raincoats, and it's your fault.
That's so true, because what impact is it going to have? If you think about it that way, would it have been the same if you weren't to have said anything? Because I think there is a responsibility on each of our parts and others to check ourselves on the receiving end. And when someone says something that makes us feel attacked or belittled, we also need to step back and say, who is this person in real life?
Yeah, absolutely.
She's a mom. She's a daughter. She's a neighbor. She makes cookies for the kids' school at this time.
Absolutely.
And she does so much. And this one thing she said, am I really going to attack her character based off of this one post? Is that rational?
Or damage the relationship, right?
Right.
And so this is going to sound more magnanimous than I mean it to. So like I've had some people take some pretty good shots, right? And I've just learned to just roll with it and to say, oh, tell me more how you feel about that or whatever. And then I've had like people say like, man, I can't believe that you let that guy do this or that. But when you try to say, what is this really about? Do I really need to take Tyler down? To what end?
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one level we're all trying to persuade each other, which is, I think, is noble. Like I think we can look at persuasion as being manipulative. But I think that if you're trying to really help someone understand your perspective and that you think your perspective has value, there's nothing, not only is there nothing wrong with that, it's actually really valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if that's the goal, then what's the end of retaliating? And if someone is feeling hurt or struck by something, give them that space. I am very sensitive when people are doing it to someone they don't know. Facebook, when someone's attacking someone they don't know.
Yeah, friend of a friend.
Yeah, I'm quick to come in, right? Or even delete a comment or message them and say, hey, that's not how we're going to roll or whatever. But I've really had to do very little of it.
Interesting.
And it's been pretty positive for the most part, right? And it's really helped me. That's the thing. I feel like now I can use this medium to connect with people in a way that is, I feel, a positive and uses it to where I think it should be how it I hate to say how it should have been designed because I don't know what the motives were of whomever created the internet machine,
mm-hmm.
right? But I think that we can determine what we want it to be for us. We don't have to be victims.
Yes.
Right? Just like all of us, I think all of us are going through a space right now. If I ask anybody, what's your smartphone protocol? People have a plan. Like we're all going through a self-evaluation of how much time
mm-hmm.
and whatever, right? Like
yeah.
I like Apple to tell me when I've had enough so that I can tell it to ignore it all day long. Right. Thanks for that limit I set for myself. Ignore.
Password.
Right?
I know the password. It doesn't matter.
So we're all doing that. We're all in that. And so I don't know why we can't incorporate this as well. Maybe it's not just our total usage. It's how we use,
mm-hmm.
how we engage. Because we all have friends too that are the all sell my product person
mm-hmm.
or the all religious channel or the all political channel. And that's fine. But they isolate quickly to those who want their product, want their religion, want their politics. Mm-hmm. And I think if this is supposed to be the new community gathering place, then we've got to open the doors. We've got to find a way to engage more people in it. And fundamentally, like any other change, that has to start with us.
Right here.
Yeah. We can't wait for someone else to do that, right? We have to be the ones that say, I want to engage in this space. And I've had some honest relationships develop. People I haven't seen for a long time or whatever. We connect in a different way and have been able to have really meaningful conversations even though we disagree.
That's amazing because I got to a space where I was so negative, so down on the whole social media thing. Like not only were people being bombastic, but even the harmless stuff was just sucking my life away. And so I admitted on my Instagram, like, I hate social media.
Yeah.
That's the place that I'm at right now. And with this podcast, I've realized I need to get back into it if I want to make a difference. And that's where you're at, right? Like, you have to be in it if you want to make a difference.
Well, that's the thing. And I've said this to people, right? When people are be like, I can't do, and that's fine, right? Everyone's got to, I don't mean to be the evangelist for social media, right? But what I have said to people is this going away? Like, I think it's a natural inclination when we have, this thing isn't working for me, end it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But
because that's the easy way out.
That's not only easy, it's practical, right? Mm. Like if every time you put on this sweater, it hurts.
It's itchy.
It's itchy. I'm going to stop wearing that sweater. Yeah. That's a completely rational place to be. But this isn't going away, and it's valuable. It's not just that it's not going away. It has latent potential. Uh-huh. And I think we all felt that initially. Can you imagine anyone going back to Gutenberg and say, you know what, people are going to print nonsense on this thing, right? People are going to print propaganda on this, and possibly even things I consider bad or harmful, inappropriate. Yeah. Uh-huh. So we better trash the whole things. And actually, there were networks who tried to do that, right? Any new medium has then gone through this evolution of kind of it had a real expansive period of time, and then stakeholders, whether they be oligarchs or governments or whatever, have come in and said, "Hey, we got to crank this down. We got to control this, right?" Yeah. And so I think we're going through some of those things with social media. Europe's already made some different regulatory things. I think we'll see some of those in the United States, and that's all fine and will run its course. But us as individual users can also dictate how this thing's going to look for us. We don't have to be victims of it.
And it will be a more impactful change if we are the ones initiating it. If the government comes in and tells us what to do, there's going to be a fair few of us who just rile against it just for that fact, even if we completely agree with what needs to be done. I don't want someone to tell me to do that.
Not the government.
But with what you're doing, it's so amazing because you're doing that now. You're doing that for people now in the space that you have. And I want to be like that. And I want more people to be like that. So where would you say someone should start if they feel this call to action? Like, I want to be like Darrin. I want to make a difference.
Right.
Where do I start? What would you say?
Well, I'm going to take a tiny issue with one of the things you said, right?
Okay.
So I want to be this way and I want more people to be that way. Of course we all do. But I think we have to not base our success on those outcomes for others. So I think we measure success. The metric of success is, how do I feel about my social media engagement? How do I feel about my internet engagement? Am I angry? Am I isolated? Am I uptight? Do I feel like it's wasting my time? Those are the metrics we have to figure out for ourselves.
Right.
So to answer your question, Rick, what would I say you do first? You figure out what you want from this medium. What do I want from this? Is it an escape? When I'm bored at the grocery store, I just want to scroll through things. Well, then what's that giving you? What's the payout for that? Right? What's its potential? What do I want from that? How do I achieve it? And then we all have to make our own set of guidelines, and I think there's some universal things we can do, right? Like we all think, we can picture a face beyond the screen. We can try to talk about ideas instead of just people, right? We can avoid personal attacks. We can be more interested in someone learning honestly from someone's perspective than just trying to persuade them to see it the way I do. And above all, we can be kind, right? We could just be nice and to say, no matter what someone does to me online, I'm going to be nice, right?
Okay.
Or try to be nice. And so I think we have to just be more intentional.
Okay, so be kind. I feel like that can sum up almost
it's not bad advice, right?
Anything
it's just
in the
not
world.
Bad universal advice.
But it's true because I think the rules of propriety have just gone out the window in social media. And picture a face, be kind, talk about ideas instead of people. Do you think that that's bled into your life, interacting with real people face to face too? I mean, I'm sure, I know you. You're an amazing person. You're very kind and considerate.
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. I don't send checks. I'll Apple Pay you.
Right.
You can Apple Pay me for
just
that.
Just Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo.
I'll Venmo you for the praise.
Do you feel it bleeding into your life and into your interactions that you have, like with your family, with the people that you actually interact with physically?
I do, and I think we all know the lurker, not liker, the person who looks at social media but then pretends like they don't, and then they accidentally slip up when they see you. Like, how was your vacation? Oh, I'm not supposed to know you went on vacation. I don't look at social media, right? And so I think for me the surprise has been I'm a little humbled by those interactions when people say, I really appreciate what you're doing. Because there's been this exchange on healthcare or something where there was 90 comments. That person never liked anything. That person never weighed in. But then I see them at the grocery store. I see them somewhere like, I really appreciated this. And I go, oh, it's more than I had anticipated. Because you get locked in and think, the 12 people who are having this conversation.
And the amount of likes.
Yes. Yeah. So it has 50 likes or 100 likes or whatever. And there's 12 people making comments. So you think that's who the audience is, right?
That's not the case.
But there's a larger audience. And so that's been surprising to me. I think I'm actually more apt to engage in political conversations now in person than I maybe would have been 3 or 4 years ago, because I don't feel like, oh, well, don't do it, it'll escalate. Oh, you can't talk about religion, it'll escalate. You can't talk about politics, it'll escalate. And now I feel like I don't have to escalate. And if someone else is getting hot, I can walk away. Yeah. We can go back to whatever innocuous thing is working for you. So I think it has bled over in some ways that I find I'm actually probably more likely to engage, or hopefully to engage in a more productive way.
That's fantastic.
You have to ask the other people around me if that's true.
That's the ticket. I think what you are doing is having the impact that you think, because I see it. We have a lot of friends who also see it. So I'm really really grateful for what you do.
The one thing I have regret with that I haven't been able to do well is I've honestly wanted to find out real specific reasons people who disagree with me think the way they do. But that's hard because you can create a space where they can have that conversation, but then people will come in and hijack it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even if you say, hey, I want to hear from the people who like this idea or this candidate, right? Everybody else just let's kind of watch and see what they say,
Yeah,
right?
Like, be quiet for a second.
Be quiet for a second. It's almost impossible for people to do, right? So you can get a few of it, and then you get someone who throws a grenade in, and they're like, but what about? And I'm like,
wait.
Yeah. And I'm like, I really want to get to an honest space. I did a survey once, and that was really helpful. I think I may do some more of that because everybody's perspective has value. I think there's some wrong-headed perspectives, don't get me wrong, but there's a reason they came to that conclusion.
Exactly.
And so that's what has value. Turns out maybe eating rocks isn't a good idea, but why do you think that? Why are you a rock eater? Right? I mean, they didn't just wake up in the morning and eat rocks, right? There's some rational reason that got them there, and finding that out is really important. And that comes from less statements and more questions. Why do you think this? Tell me more about this. It's the same way we interact with humans, right? When we want to know more. And I would like to figure out a way to do that a little better, to really let people have some space to say what they think. And we ought to have forums to do that.
Yeah.
Right? We ought to have a place for people, not to rant. I'm not talking about tribing up with your own people, but we really ought to have an opportunity for people who disagree with each other to really try to understand why someone's coming from that perspective. And I think we all think social media can be like that, but it currently isn't. And I'll be a little bold. I think it's cheap to blame the system or to blame others. Like, I think we have to own our part of that, because I can't change Facebook's algorithms, but I can change that I really do want to know why you're thinking these things, and to try to really have that exchange. And that's going to require effort.
I wonder if I came up with a list of questions, or if there was just a standard list of questions when somebody posts something that's inflammatory, you automatically give them this set of questions. Like, you must answer all of these questions so that people can have context, so that they see where you're coming from. You know, like, what do you think, first drives this? Why does this mean something to you? And then you're kind of just digging in, like, why? Until we all get to the root of, oh, that makes sense. If I was in his position, I'd probably feel the same way.
Yeah, and we may not even get to that root cause or that root thing, but at least if we've created space where someone feels like, hey, at least with you, I know I can say that.
Or
right?
I'm trying to understand.
I
don't understand, but I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, at least there's got to be some spaces where I feel like this is a place where I could say something and not instantly be attacked, shut down, ridiculed, right? That my opinion would have value.
Yeah.
And I think we can all create spaces like that. And I think we have to be thick-skinned about it, right? Because if people are engaging in a way that's not like that, and then we try to engage them in a different way, they're not going to instantly be like, oh, this is a great idea, thanks.
Right.
And with that, like, I think we talk about civility being the goal. And I think I've changed my opinion on that. And a little bit of that comes from Arthur Brooks in his new book, Love Thy Enemy. Because think about if someone said, in regards to civility, if someone said, well, how's their marriage? Well, they're civil. Well, we think they needed help.
Yeah.
Right? We wouldn't say
they're barely on, like, speaking terms.
Yeah. If they're civil, that's the absence of malice, right? The absence of malice is not the same as kindness. Now, we're not policymakers, right, on Facebook or those kinds of things. But if we could come away with not let's just be civil with each other, but let's try to really understand and respect each other, and maybe even find things we can agree on, I think would be even more productive than just being civil. And I think also if we created a culture where we not only were trying to be civil, but we didn't participate in incivility. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a name caller, whatever, anymore. I think that would be something that's admirable. And again, we can't do that for other people, but we can do it for us.
Sure.
We control what we do.
Right. Okay, so I have this idea where I want you to practice with me. I want to give the listeners what this might look like over Facebook.
Sure. Great.
let's just do gun control. Let's just do it. I'm going to take on a role and you're going to take on a role.
Great.
And I'm going to try and be a little bit over the top and maybe a little bit rude and then try and dial myself back and like let the listener see what it looks like in real life. Okay. Sure. So introduce me to something from your own perspective. I'll just take the opposite perspective from your own perspective about gun control.
It's not reasonable to say that nothing can be done, right? What to be done will require a lot of conversation, a lot of debate, and that's valuable. But to say that there's absolutely nothing that can be done, the status quo is acceptable, to me seems untenable.
But every time we come to the table, we've got these liberal people just shoving stuff down our faces saying, like, we just need to take the guns away. There's no conversation to be had because no one is listening. No one will listen to us.
What are some things you would like liberals to know about how you feel about gun control?
I would like liberals to feel or to know what it's been like for me and my family having a gun in our house growing up. I would like them to see what it looks like in a home where a gun is properly taken care of and enjoyed for shooting out during our family trips. And I'd like them to see what good it could do and that it actually means something to me and my family. It's important to us.
The gun is, for you, is something about your family that connects you. It's more than just some nefarious thing latently waiting to kill innocent people at the mall.
Right. And before all these mass shootings happened, it never occurred to me that it could be that thing. It's always been something in the movies or in the video games. Like, guns have never been a violent, horrible, awful thing to me in real life. Like, news articles have changed that, but I want people to see that, yeah, this can be something completely fine and taken care of, but it feels like no one's listening. It doesn't matter what I say because they don't care. They want to push whatever policy that they're pushing.
So you would say it feels like there's a rationale to having guns that isn't nefarious or bad, and that people don't understand that, and that they really don't even care. They just are like, we've got to get all the guns.
Yes.
And if you don't see it that way, we're out to get you too.
Right. Yeah. So to say, oh yeah, maybe there is something we can do about it. But honestly, from my point of view, I don't see that happening. I don't see people actually being able to come to any kind of conclusion over this.
So we have a hard time coming to a conclusion. But when I first started this conversation, I'd be interested in your perspective in it is, do you think nothing is a good option? Like, so we have this elevated level of suicides with guns. We have this elevated level of mass shooting. So I hear you saying guns are important, that they're an important part of your culture, that you worry about an entire group of people who don't understand or appreciate that. But do you think nothing can be done to reduce the amount of violence we see at the hand of guns?
Well, whether it can be done, I mean, of course, no one's going to sit here and say that they want it to continue or even to escalate from where it's at right now. I mean, you'd have to be a terrorist to say that you want it to continue as bad or worse as it is. Of course, I don't want to see children dying or people committing suicide, but at the same time, I don't want my own rights taken away so that someone else can go and find a way to get around the law and do it anyway, right? I'm sitting here without the things that I want to do and think that are fine, and I'm a responsible, reasonable person, and I can't do anything that I think is fun now. I can't go shoot my guns now. And
you took away part of my culture.
You took away part of my culture, and the people who were going to go and shoot up that school
are
going to go and do it anyway. They're just going to have to work a tiny bit harder to get the gun this time. So that's why I feel frustrated over this argument.
Yeah. Interesting.
That was awesome. Okay, guys. And lest you all go and blast me on the internet, those may or may not have been my actual views on
and we actually did not practice that.
We didn't. That was
extemporaneous,
just... Yes.
Right?
And I think it's been from seeing what you've been doing online that I have come away from my childhood, from my past, the things that have given me experience and been able to see, there are other experiences that are valid, Darrin, and I'm really so grateful for the work that you do. And on the low days, I just want you to remember that there are people out there changing and becoming better
kind.
because of you. And I'm
kind.
so grateful for having you here tonight. Thank you so much. Is there anything else, anything like books, movies, podcasts that have helped you or that you would recommend to the listeners to go and check out?
Well, again, I mean, my kind of wheelhouse is politics. Like, that's something that's been important to me. And I do think we have to work hard. If we want more civility in that area, especially in our social media, then we have to tune out the voices that are really not civil. Like, I think we could all do a better job of not going to our cheerleaders who really are trying to rile us up, right? And I think we could be more informed. That sounds maybe patronizing, and I don't mean it to. But I think, if something sounds provocative, right, maybe that's not the greatest place to get that resource from.
Or
right?
maybe if it feels too like, yes, of course, that's correct, maybe we should step back and go try and find a different view.
Yeah, like a rule for me is I don't watch my news. I for the most part, read my news, and that's more valuable to me. But I think... I don't know where to point someone directly. I do. I can point someone directly to. It's the Mirror. I know that sounds completely trite, right, or really cheesy. But I think the first thing we could do is ask ourselves is, what am I going to do differently in my social media interaction? What am I actually going to do, right? What are some things that are deal breakers for me? I'm not going to be unkind. I'm not going to make, ad hominem attacks, that so-and-so, whatever. I think we could decide what we will and won't engage in. And I think we can be bigger than to say, I'm just out. That doesn't do anything. So we're going to let it be for the yellers? We're going to just surrender the medium to the yellers.
Oh, you're right.
You're right. So I think we have to say, now that doesn't mean you're 2 hours a day. That doesn't mean that it's this whole new thing. But I think that's the number one thing I would leave with is, don't surrender the medium to the yellers, to the other people. We can make a difference. Surely we believe we can make a change, and that change starts with us, and that we can engage in a more healthy, appropriate, whatever way. I don't think the end is that we all just agree, right? In fact, one of my favorite quotes comes from Adelaide Stevens: when opinions clash, freedom rings. So we can have a differing of opinions, but we can do it in a way that moves the ball forward towards shared objectives, and we can do that online. And even outside of even just politics, we can be a difference in the social media. We can be controlling in the way we do it. For us, what works for us, and then hopefully let that move on to other people.
Amen. It makes me feel like, yes, I can do this.
There's hope. You can do it.
We'll see what happens when I actually get online again and encounter something provocative. But thank you so much, Darrin. It's been a pleasure having you here tonight.
Pleasure has been all mine. It's been amazing. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. All right, you guys. Did that just blow your mind or what? It's such a great thing to have a different perspective and just to take a step back and think what am I doing? What am I saying? What effect is this actually having? Am I offending someone and pushing them further into their own camp? Or am I opening doors, like Darrin said, and inviting them into a place that is secure? And it all starts, just like Darrin said, with the man in the mirror. We can get some rights for Michael Jackson songs in here. But this week's Pop Challenge, Power of Practice Challenge, if we want to make a difference in our lives and the lives of others, we need to be willing to practice and try and fail at things. So Power of Practice Challenge this week is this. You are going to go and engage with Darrin, okay? His blog, again, is theblogIsmightier.wordpress.com. And I'll link that in the show notes. You can find it at learnliveloveyourself.com as well. You're going to go and engage with him. Wherever you come from, whatever your political views, it doesn't matter. You're going to get some really good practice with him and maybe even change your mind about something. And I think that as we do this, we are setting ourselves up to not only be better people, but to give a blueprint and a runway for this generation that's coming up behind us. Because if we really want to make a difference, we need to set down some groundwork and lay the foundation for them, for our children and others to do the same thing as well. So Pop Challenge, go find Darrin. The blog is mydearthanthesword.wordpress.com. All right, that's about it, you guys. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm Lindsay Clyde. This is the Learn, Live, Love Yourself podcast. Leave a review, and next time, bring a friend.